Welcome to the second episode of Jesus, the Jews, and Myself, A Reckoning. I'll keep this intro very short because we've got one heck of an intro we're working on for tomorrow.
Overall, Jesus' religion was only preached primarily to Jews. People did come from further abroad, but he was basically only preaching to Jews and who were his society. And as far as he knew, it was Judaism. There's so much that I want to tell you right now about misunderstandings in the New Testament, but I can't do that. We're sticking with one very important point. A very, very important point. There are many of you who've been asking me to try to understand some of what Jesus did and some of what Jesus said based on understanding the religion that he came from, the religion of the Jews of the Old Testament, of the religion that I have, thank God, inherited. Here's something I came across that blew my mind, and I think you'll find it very interesting. And Jews, because I haven't decided yet whether to care about your concerns or not, I will. Let me say, I do not think that Jesus was God. I do not think that he was even an effective Messiah. After all, the world's not utopia, etc., etc. If you need me to make some kind of blanket, some statement against Christianity or the New Testament per se, then you're obviously a person of very limited knowledge and very limited imagination. I can't really aim for you as a group to whatever. But if you're concerned that you can call me Christian in accordance with the definition of nearly all Christians that I have ever met, I'm not saying all, some might consider me a Christian, but according to nearly the definitions of nearly everybody on earth, very much not a Christian. Okay? So I've taken you into consideration. If you still have an issue with it, then my stuff is not for you, probably. Or we can talk about it, get in contact, email or WhatsApp. So here's a story that I'll tell you that's interesting on every level: historical, theological, tribal, just the whole thing, everything to do about their society and our society. I was listening to Bart Ehrman once. Bart Ehrman is an expert on the Christian Bible. He grew up evangelical, now he considers himself kind of atheist with, admitting that he doesn't know for sure there's no God. So, otherwise, generally speaking, atheist agnostic. Nonetheless, even though a lot of Christians dislike him, he seems to be a fair broker. He seems to be doing what he thinks is right, as an honest broker. I'm not saying he gives as much moral speculation to it as you do on a regular basis, because he's obviously gone through a big change in his life. He did the moral speculation and he made a decision. Christians, for the record, most Christians that I know, if you're watching this, if you like this, you'll probably enjoy Bart Ehrman as well. But as you'll see here, there's a danger in Bart Ehrman, and that is, he said about the famous story, and I may as well tell you the story, the famous story of Jesus and the adulterous woman, that story is a fake story that showed up in the 8th century and was not part of the Christian Bible. And so, Christians who actually want to be sola scriptura and look at the original, this was not part of the original. And he chuckled. He said probably what happened was a scribe was writing it and he thought, this sounds like something Jesus would do, and he put it in. Well, I'm familiar with the story. The story is that Jesus went to the temple, because again, he wasn't hiding, he was transparent. He was saying, either what I'm having are the most important conversations on earth, or I'm evil, or I'm a nut. Let's go, engage. Assassination was supposed to be off the menu. I have a Substack article on that. If I mention anything here regarding a Substack article or another video, I'll put it in the description. So, he went to the temple, and he saw some of the people there who he himself started teaching. He saw some other people who were teaching, and Pharisees. Now the problem here with Pharisees, as I mention every time, Pharisees, or in Hebrew, Perushim, the people who compiled and put together the New Testament and chose their wording, for the most part, when they talk about the Pharisees, they are not talking about the people that Jews know today as Chazal. They were not talking about Rabban Gamliel, they were not talking about Hillel. They didn't get to those levels. They didn't meet these guys until later on. But during Jesus' life, there was no involvement whatsoever with those Pharisees. He's talking about the Amei Haaretz, the majority of the people who were basically following the Pharisees because they were like the official leaders. They were sitting in Cathedra de Moshe, the Cathedral of Moshe, the chair of Moses. They were the ones who had the authority. So most people followed them without really having much of an idea that the Pharisees themselves, as you can see in the Mishnah and the Talmud, worried very much about every detail of law. They took things very seriously. These are people just ruled by their passions. They don't really know what's going on. And the majority of well, I won't speak about our day. Anyone could decide for themselves whether the majority of Orthodox Jews today are scholars who take the whole thing very seriously or just totally ignorant of what the scholars really believe and really care about and just, going through the motions. So Jesus was there, and they brought in a woman who had been caught adulterating, for which a death penalty in the Torah is death. And Jesus is there, and they turn to Jesus, and they say, hey, you claim that you are committed to the Torah of Moshe. He clearly claims that in the Sermon on the Mount. He clearly claims that. He says not a jot off of the Yud will disappear from the Torah of Moshe forever. Anyway, so they say, you claim that that you take this seriously. Well, in the Torah of Moshe, it says to kill them. So what should we do, Jesus, you pacifist? So the mob is all gathered around. They're about to stone her. And Jesus just plays in the sand. That's what it says. He draws something in the sand. And I'm sure there have been some Christian groups who have magical, woody explanations about what he was drawing. The fact is, it's really just describing what happened. If there was some greater depth to it, it's been lost to history. It has not been recorded. He was just drawing in the sand. He wasn't saying anything. He wasn't responding. They were trying to get a response out of him. Should we kill her, yes or no? If you say yes, well, that whole turn the other cheek thing, that whole, we can all get along and let's forgive everybody and let's confess all our sins to each other, that whole thing, you're saying doesn't apply. On the other hand, if you say don't kill her, well, now you deserve the death penalty because you are saying that you're against the law of Moses, or at the very least, nobody should listen to you. Who cares about the law of Moses? He didn't respond. He just continued drawing. They kept pestering him until he had no choice. You can imagine the scene, right? A scene of people who are, the kind of internet people we see today, full of hatred, full of shout them down, full of use every crowd power in order to hurt somebody else. Don't listen to reason, make it smarter for them not to talk at all. So they were pressing upon him. Finally, he had to say something. So he said, let the one who is without sin cast the first stone. And then what happened was the elders, after a while, the place got really quiet. One presumes the younger people were still blah, 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 blah. And the elders told them to be quiet. That's the implication in the story as it's written. The elders told them to be quiet. The elders communed among themselves, and the elders all left. And then the young people all left. And it was just him and the woman. And he said, rise up and sin no more. Tshuva, repentance. You're a new person when you do real tshuva. So my dear Christians, and I say it primarily to you because very, very few Jews are capable of looking at the Jesus story as a lovely Jewish story, as an important, essential religious Jewish story, without feeling like they are in some way Christians, because most human beings, Jews and non-Jews alike, think tribally when it comes to ideological stuff, more than physical stuff. People will defend their flag even if their government shits on them. They'll defend their flag. We humans are odd that way. We are a herd species. So I do not begrudge any Jew whatsoever if they're not so comfortable hearing about Jesus, because after all, most Jews and most Christians claim that their religions are basically magical. That their true belief is in the pudding. If you have to believe first, make your leap of faith. And they're scared. We all know we're nuts in the head. What happens if I leap of faith in the wrong direction? So Jews, I don't blame you. But just so you know, both Christianity and Judaism were originally rational religions that we could talk through and come to a common understanding on. So, Christians, what Judaism was Jesus doing there? Right? It sounds like he was just saying, yeah, really, we shouldn't do like the law of Moses, right? But I can't say that or you'll kill me, so, right? That's what it sounds like. It sounds like he wasn't legit really all about this law of Moses. That's one way to view Jesus. It's not the majority Christian view of viewing Jesus. They believe he was pretty sincere about keeping the law. They believe, in fact, that when he said, "Let him who is without sin cast the first stone," this is part of his implication that everyone is sinful except for him, and therefore he has to die for everyone's sins, whatever. A misreading of the story, but it doesn't matter here. What he was actually saying was, well, we'll get there. But Christians, you want to know what Jesus was actually saying. If you're actually curious to know, if you believe that, at least from his point of view, he was following the Old Testament. What happened there? Here's what happened. There's a verse in the Old Testament, perhaps the most important verse that you should consider right now in your life as to whether you think if you can make a difference. I assume that if you could make a difference through sharing or etc., you would have done that already. But people think of money differently. So in your life, right now, thinking about whether you want to make a difference in this respect and really support me, like I said, YouTube stopped showing my videos because I owe them some money. That's why you'll see that up until a month ago, I was getting 5,000 to 10,000 views. And then it dropped to under 100. They're not even offering people the possibility of seeing my videos. So this verse applies to anyone who wants to consider whether they have a responsibility to engage in any public action or not, to change the status quo. It's as follows. It's from Shemos, Exodus, chapter 23:2. It says there, Lo sihiyeh acharei rabim liraos, velo sa'aneh al riv lintos acharei rabim lahatos. I'll translate it. Lo sihiyeh, do not be. Now, first of all, the word be is God's name. God, of course, can't really have a name because God's the one everything big thing. But from our perspectives, in order to be able to relate to him, we have names for him. The way he introduced himself to Moses was Eheyeh. I am and I will be. In other words, I am reality. I am existence. I am that which is true and that which is good, as Zechariah phrases it. We as humans are getting to play the role of God. God is giving us the ability to choose, to love the is, the great is, the one beyond which can be spoken, or not to. And the Torah tells us which ones do conform with loving it and which do not. So lo tihiyeh, do not be. Again, as in everything you do is divine. Every action you take or don't take is divine. Lo siyeh acharei rabim, after the majority, liraos, to evil. In other words, just because everyone else is doing evil, don't become one of them. Easy enough. Next part of the verse. Velo sa'aneh al riv lintos acharei rabim lahatos. And when it comes to an argument, do not provide your words just because the majority has them. Literally, lo sa'aneh, do not answer al riv, on an argument, in other words, one that you're not involved with, but some other argument out there. Lo sa'aneh al riv, lintos, to lean, acharei rabim, after the majority, lahatos, to cause them to lean. So first of all, let's go through the Jesus story again. He's teaching the people who are not in yeshiva, again, the New Testament, at least the Jesus stories, are not opposed to those rabbis that Jews revere today. I promise you that. The first time one of those rabbis shows up is after Jesus' death, and he is the most commendable individual in the story. Historically, we also know that the more religious Perushim, those that actually followed Chazal, that went to yeshiva, that they as well were opposed to the killing of Jesus and all of his other people, etc., etc., even though they didn't fully agree or understand them. In any case, these busybodies who have nothing better to do, they come in and they bring this adulterous woman and they ask him about Moses, trying to catch him in a trap. And what he does is he doesn't answer. Right? There's no question that Jesus is not going to violate not to be with a majority doing evil. Right? Lo siya achre rabim l'raos. He's definitely not going to be together with them just because he wants to join in. Jesus was not somebody who put into social pressure. He didn't give in to social pressure.
Tomorrow at 5 p.m., here in the Sinai, in Jerusalem, everywhere where most of my Middle Eastern watchers will be, Minahar Mitzrayim at Nahar Pras, 5 p.m., and 10 a.m. in New York, 7 a.m. in California and Seattle, etc. We'll be uploading the third and final episode.